Welcome in to the At the Yard podcast, episode 128. We are reviewing the class of 2026 player rankings we released recently. Happy to be joined by Hank LoForte, Stephen Hardesty, and Vinnie Alfino. Gentlemen, welcome back. We've got a lot to cover today, so here we go. Right,
End of
another busy summer. Updated rankings, and with that comes a lot of movement in this particular class. Before we jump too far in, I just wanted to get your guys' initial take on all of the movement we are seeing so far here in this class of 2026 rankings.
I think one of the biggest things is just this class continues to evolve. Like I came in, this is my third year now, and the 2026s were all sophomores when I first started with prep baseball, and just how much this group has evolved, like especially in my area, there are names that have popped up that weren't even on the radar 2 years ago, and now we're seeing them come into the top 100, top 150, and by the time all is said and done, they could be even higher up this board.
Yeah, a lot of development in this class that I've seen. I think I see a lot more of the college bodies than your prototypical the pro guys in this class. But like Hardy said, there's guys up here that last year during this time nobody really knew about them, and now it's like, hey, there's buzz around these guys. So yeah, I'm a fan of the 26 class.
Yeah, I think there's, a lot of guys that had a lot of big spring seasons and followed that up with a good summer circuit. So some guys we're going to talk about later, you're just going to see a lot of guys that had some big jumps in the rankings that, like Hank said, like Hardy said, kind of were under the radar. But, it's just credit to them that, they understand they're going into their senior year, big final year coming up for them. And, to follow up a lot of these guys to have a big summer after a good spring, it's huge for them. So like Hank said, it's a talented class.
Yeah, and the kind of the start to the summer was our pro case, both in NorCal and SoCal. A lot of these guys that we'll talk about today were either at the pro case, had been to a previous event, somewhere along the line. A couple of these guys at the senior future games, some of them at the state games. So, many of them participated in the area code games. And what I think we're really starting to see in this class is a lot of separation by some of these guys, right, that are kind of pushing their way up the boards, both in the rankings and in our draft boards. And ultimately, you hate to say it, but some regression by some of these guys, right? Or standing kind of where they are, right? And Hardy, I'll kick it to you. You've been doing this a really long time, and it's important to note that, right? When it comes to rankings, right, and player development, like that kind of not regression per se, but that kind of remaining stagnant.
Exactly. I think one of my favorite statements is that players are allowed to get better. Like you're allowed to get better, but also in the same concept, like there's guys that do go backwards. Like maybe they were really, really good as a freshman or sophomore, and now people have started to catch up and pass them up and become better than them. And I think that's really what we're seeing with this class is I think this group, if you look back in 2020 with the pandemic, a lot of this group was in that 7th, 8th grade area and they missed a lot of time. That's a very big part of development. And so some of those guys that maybe backslid or weren't there physically or just couldn't get out, like there's probably spots where guys couldn't get out and play baseball when they were 7th and 8th graders because we weren't allowed to do it. And so you're seeing those guys start to catch up and pass. And it's kind of that, like you said, it's some regression, but I think the bigger thing with this group is the development of those guys that weren't ready as freshmen or sophomores, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a freshman, sophomore, and you're not ready to be on the big time stage, like that's all of us. I was 4'10" as a freshman in high school. Like I didn't get to five, and not that I'm that tall now, but I didn't get to 5'7", and that's a stretch if I'm being honest. But I didn't get to 5'7" until I was a junior in high school, and I wasn't really good at baseball until I was a junior in high school, and that's when it took off. So I look at myself in the terms of rankings, and it's like I would have been nowhere in consideration when I was a freshman and sophomore. I probably would have been like, hey, that guy's all right as a junior. And my senior years where I kind of took off, and we're seeing that with this group is it's a big chunk of kids that have just continued to get better. And I think Hank, we talked about this the other day on a call for our 28 class, like that NorCal group, it just gets better and better as they get older because they get out and play more baseball, right?
Right. And, it's just that little downtime that we do have up here for that extra development, I think does play a part. But, like you were saying, like just I think with this class too is you'll see those kids and you'll see some of those kids that you don't hear about. And I think, they go the JUCO route. They go their, take an extra step or whatever.
Yeah.
Those kids will be the better ones all said and done in a way, just because, like the COVID thing. They didn't get that extra 2 years of reps and, but now they're kind of hurting on the back end of it. So I think once we all catch up, we'll see what happens.
Vinny, in your experiences, obviously you went on to play in college as well, but just your experience as a prospect or as a player, right? Going from where did you see like the biggest growth in your game? Was it early? Was it late?
For me, I felt I was kind of similar to Hardy, where I saw a big jump in my junior year. I was always kind of in the higher percentile in terms of height for my age, in terms of just body, but I really didn't grow into my body in terms of actually figuring out how to use it until I was really a junior or senior in high school. And then I was kind of right before this class in terms like they were seventh and eighth grade when they were, hit COVID, but I hit it my freshman year of college. So, I'm kind of in the same sense as them, that they were early going into high school and they hit that. And then I kind of faced it when I was in my college years. So it's definitely an adjustment period. And, it's credit to those kids that, they didn't have those 2 years, but now you're seeing them starting to get it back and you're seeing the development really take off. So, I mean, everybody's different. And that's like the big thing with scouting and recruiting. You have to understand that everyone's different. Bodies are going to develop differently, and guys are going to blossom early, blossom late. And, that's the beauty of baseball. Then in the end, it kind of all balances out.
Yeah, no doubt there. The key kind of theme there that you guys all talked about is development, right? And just continue to develop. And as you said, Vinny, it all happens differently for everybody.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the rankings here. We wanted to talk about the top 10 to start. Essentially half of the top 10 is new. 5 new players in the top 10. At the top, we have Tyler Spangler out of De La Salle, the shortstop. Number 2 is a reclass from the 27 class to 26s, Logan Schmidt, who recently committed to LSU after the area code games. Number 3, a guy we're familiar with from the future games last year, Jensen Hirschkorn. Number 4 is a new entry in James Clark, the shortstop out of St. John Bosco. Number 5, Archer Horn from St. Ignatius, a Stanford commit. Number 6, Blake Bowen, the outfielder out of J. Sarah, an Oregon State commit. Number 7, the infielder from Harvard Westlake, James Tronstein. Number 8, outfielder and apparently now relief pitcher, Anthony Murphy from Corona.
Closer.
Closer. Number 9, Logan Georges out of Clovis High School. And rounding out the top 10, Brody Schumacher, the infielder out of Santa Margarita. And guys, we've had an opportunity to see a lot of these guys, quite a bit, particularly the guys at the top there and the top 3. I talked about Hirschkorn being at the future games last year, but, Hank, I want to kick it over to you and start with Tyler Spangler at the top. Obviously a Stanford commit, shortstop, left-handed bat who seemingly can do a lot of really, really good things on the baseball field.
Yeah, obviously, we all know Spangler's a really talented player. We saw him a couple times this season, and, it's every time we see him, he's hitting the ball hard. He's doing something in the infield. He's just a really crisp player, and I think with him, this summer was the first time he was actually able to hit the summer circuit hard. And I think he did almost every event you could do this summer. So I think he is a little burnt out at the end of the day. But no, it's so fun to watch him play. Just he's got that 6'3" frame. He can run, and then you can't really find that lefty swing anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, you guys have seen Spangler. I'll probably see him a couple more times this year and going into next, but he's going to be a pretty high draft pick in my eyes, I think.
Yeah, he at the area code games was really impressive, where we got an up close look at him. Obviously, number 2 guy, Logan Schmidt. I had the opportunity to see Schmidt's outing there at the area code games, and it was electric. He was really, really good. Fastball up to 96 or 97. The slider, the changeup. I mean, it's a complete package. He's really worked on his frame. He's added some physicality to the frame. He's kind of, hardened up the soft spots around the frame. And what really impressed me about Logan Schmidt's outing at the area code games was just the mentality of, I'm going to come after you, and here it is, try to do some damage against it. But it's an overall really strong frame, who we mentioned recently committed to LSU, and it's just a very projectable body. It's a very projectable frame. The upside is really high, particularly with the athletic movements on the mound, the repeatable delivery, and the mechanics. It's just very, very intriguing, and he's very much made a name for himself this summer, even going back to last summer on the underclass team. But this summer, he's really elevated his stock going into what is now his senior year at Ganesha. And Hardy, I know you got a chance. I believe, Vinnie, you were there also.
Yeah.
For 𝕤𝕠𝕕𝕤𝕠𝕕. But Hardy, you saw 𝕤𝕠𝕠𝕠𝕠 obviously at the Future Games last year. You saw him, again this summer at the area code games. I mean, this is a guy with unlimited potential in my eyes.
Big time. Like, I was behind home plate last year at Future Games doing the video when he was throwing, and you could see, like, he wasn't comfortable first inning. He comes out, he's popping 92, 93, but he's not finding the zone. And there was this awareness with him, and I think this comes from the product of being a coach's kid. His dad's the head coach at Fresno Pacific Division II, where it was like, okay, I'm not throwing strikes at 92, 93. Let's back this off to 86, 88. Let's put the ball in the zone. Let's get some contact. Let's trust our defense. And then it came out like he wasn't feeling his best. He wasn't at 100% at Future Games. He took some time off. He kind of came back, I think, middle part of spring last year. I think Hank can clarify better on that. But his outing at area codes in 20 years, this is actually year 19. I'm rounding up again, like my height. But in year 19 of doing this, his area code outing is the best outing I've ever seen in my 19 years of doing this as a college coach or going around evaluating players. It was 94 to 96. I think he might have got down to 2 and 3 later on in his third inning, but it just looked like he was playing catch. We say this all the time in baseball. Like, there's guys that look like they're throwing 95, and then there's guys that are throwing 95 that look like they're playing catch. And that's how good Jensen looked that day. It was everything for a strike. It's not a high spin breaking ball, but it's got a really good shape. It tunnels well off of his fastball, and he can throw it in the zone, and then he can bury it down in the dirt and get you to swing over it. There's feel for a changeup there. Like, it is the complete package on the mound, and it's going to get better. Like, he's going to throw harder eventually because there's more in that tank. He's going to put strength on a very lean, wiry, 6'7" athletic frame. It was one of the more comical things. He struck out 9 out of 9 guys. And then there's another guy in our top 10 who followed him and then struck out the first hitter and then walked a guy. And the team they were playing started cheering because it was 10 straight strikeouts before the A squad finally allowed a base runner. So Jensen's on the uncommitted side. It's not going to be there for very long. It reminds me a lot of the Connor Griffith out of Mississippi, where he was uncommitted at this time, but not going to commit because he's not good enough. He's got everybody in the country that's going to want him, and he's going to have his choice of where he wants to go to school. And kind of like Spangler and Schmidt, it's going to come around next summer that he's going to have a decision to make. Does he want to go to school? Does he want to be a professional baseball player? But that's the kind of talent we're talking about here. It's not, the game's not going to tell him which direction to go. He's going to have a choice which direction he wants to go.
Yeah, he was very good out there in Georgia, and you could see it like you mentioned. His ability to take some off,
Yeah.
just the aptitude, right? I mean, that's what would most impressed me out in Georgia was, okay, it's not working at 93, like you said. Let me just dip it down to 89 and start pounding the zone.
And not many of us could just dip it down to 89.
Right. Vinny, a guy that I know you saw at area codes, James Clark, out of St. John Bosco, the shortstop. I mean, this guy obviously had a huge spring season, helping them win the CIF title. But he was this summer one of the breakout guys, and climbing all the way up to number 4 for us. What's your take on him?
I think it's just a smooth left-handed swing. There's not a lot out there like that. Athletic, it's a compact build, but obviously there's speed, strength in the compact build. And he had a good, my first showing of him was at area code, and he had a good showing there. And I think it's both sides of the ball that have a chance to play, not only at the next level of college, but, potential, future beyond collegiate. So I thought he performed well. Obviously, I hope I can get a look at him maybe in the fall or the spring. But the first look I had of him at area code was a positive look, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, he had a monster spring season that, and an even bigger summer season, kind of culminating now with the 18U national team. So, very well-deserved honor there. And then, going through the rest of the top 10, Bowen, Troney, Murphy, guys that were all at the West Coast Pro Case for us at Pepperdine. Bowen, just, an elite arm talent out in the outfield, big physical guy, 6'3", 210, former safety in football. I like to say when you're a sophomore and you are the league defensive player of the year in football, you're a pretty special talent.
Yeah.
He obviously has since quit playing football, focus on baseball. Had a chance to see him at scout ball, was strong there, scuffled a bit at the plate, chatted with him briefly after the game. I think he, like a lot of these guys, is just really tired after a very long summer and spring season. Next guy, Troney Barrels, as we like to call him here at Prep Baseball California. Everything he hit at the pro case was 100 miles an hour plus, compact frame, very physical. Now uncommitted is our understanding. One of the top hitters in this class that is still looking for a home, and something tells me that, he'll have a lot of opportunities, moving forward here. Anthony Murphy, who's also playing on the 18U national team. I mean, we've loved Murph since day one as a freshman. I don't think there's a better defensive center fielder in this class, potentially even nationally, man. I mean, We've seen this guy make play after play after play that just kind of leaves your jaw on the ground wondering how the hell he made those things. And then now he's making the move to close, at least on the USA team. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's the move moving forward into the high school season there at Corona. Then after him is Logan Georges. I had the opportunity to see Logan as a freshman playing in the National Classic, and you knew as a freshman it was going to be special. But Hank, obviously suffered an injury there, missed his sophomore year, came back middle of last spring, and really, again, cemented himself as one of the top arms in California. Take us through what you know about Logan Georges.
Yeah, so Logan, like you said, he's coming back from an injury, but he had a huge summer, right? And I remember when I went down to Fresno and saw him throw at the end of the year. We were talking about ℙ𝕠𝕕𝕤𝕕. There's pitchers and then there's throwers, and those two guys are both pitchers, and they both have elite stuff. They're kind of in the same kind of bracket as far as like electricity, I'd say, but Georges is 6'5", ℙ𝕠𝕕𝕤𝕕's 6'7". They're both going to give you, they're both not soft is what I'm trying to get at. It's like they're both competitors. They're going to attack the zone with the fastball, and then they'll just roll off their off speed. And I know Georges has a real plus slider. And I know I was talking to Shooter about him, and every time you saw him throw this summer, it's just kind of been slowly going uphill. So I was excited to see the Georges this summer, and just see how everything planned out for them. So it was fun to see.
Yeah, he really made a jump this spring, and again in the summer just kind of carried that over. And a guy who Hardy, I know that I've been on for a while, and I know you like him a lot too. Rounds out our top 10, Brody Schumacher, the TCU commit. I personally was really disappointed that in 3 games at the area codes, I saw him, I think, get 2 at bats, kind of a late defensive replacement. Rather than sulking, what does he do? He goes out and he makes the 18U national team.
Yeah.
Strictly as an infielder, not a two-way guy, obviously, but this is a guy who is kind of top-end talent with the bloodlines. Obviously, dad is Skip Schumacher, former big leaguer. But this is a guy, Hardy, I know you've liked a lot, since you kind of joined us a couple of years ago, probably even before that. But Brody Schumacher, in my book, is just an elite defensive middle infielder with a left-handed bat that's only going to get better.
Completely agree. Like, I saw Brody, I knew who he was, I'd seen video of him, but I finally got a chance to see him the first time at our spring tournament in 2024, and I think I had 3 or 4 at bats that day, and he did everything that you could want to see out of a SoCal infielder, left-handed hitter. He picked up a 2-strike swing or 2-strike single going to left field. He drops down a base hit bunt. He hammers a ball to right center field. He draws a walk. He makes 2 good plays on defense. There's guys that might have louder tools and put up better, metrics. They're going to run faster. They're going to throw the ball harder across the diamond. They're going to hit 109 on their exit velocity and those things. But Brody does everything really, really well, and he does it across the board. He can defend. He can throw. You talked about it. He can play the outfield. He can play the middle infield. I swear you could probably put catcher gear on that kid and he'd go back there and he'd be one of the best catchers in this class. He can really, really hit. And I think that's something that gets undersold is he can really hit. When you say somebody can really hit, like that guy has the chance to hit at the top of a lineup. And I'm not talking about college. Like he's a guy for me that is going to be a big leaguer. Like the only reason he doesn't become a big leaguer is God forbid he has some major injury or something that derails him. But that's a kid that I just feel like he's going to play in the big leagues. He's going to be very productive in the big leagues one day. And we're going to look back and go like, okay, we nailed it on this kid being one of the top 10 players in the state of California. And maybe we were even a little too light on him. But I love Brody. And you, same as you, I was super bummed. I only got to 1 day of the upper class. And I was like, okay, let's go. I'm going to get 2-3 at bats out of Brody Schumacher. And didn't play the day that I was there. So missing him was a letdown of going to area codes. But that kid is one of my personal favorites in this class.
Yeah, he's a stud. So that rounds out our top 10. Guys, this article we put out, thank you, Hardy. We list a number of different uncommitted guys, risers, newcomers to the rankings. So we're going to kind of recap that. And if you haven't read the article, you can check out prepbaseball.com/California, where you'll find it right on the homepage there. It goes in depth on, 45-ish or so guys, with notes on those guys. So let's start with the top 10 uncommitted guys. We're going to bounce around here a little bit. Obviously at the very top is Jensen ℏ𝕗, who we talked about at number 3, an uncommitted guy. But Vinny, I want to kick it over to you for a San Diego product. Ian Brook, the catcher out of Patrick Henry, another pro case guy for us. He's at number 73 in the top 10 uncommitted guys. He's number 73. He's the number 4 top 10 uncommitted guy for us. But Ian Brook, we saw him a bunch at the, obviously during the spring season you did down in San Diego. Obviously we had him at the pro case, and, we'll see him a little bit here during Scout Ball as well. But Ian Brook, Vinny.
Yeah. So first look at Ian Brook was my first week on the job was at our preseason All-State in San Diego. And Brooke was a standout for me. He was a two flat average pop time, but the arm carry immediately stood out. He led all of catchers with a 79 arm velo, and he played well in batting practice. But then when I saw him first in the spring with Patrick Henry, he was on JV last year as a sophomore, comes up first year on varsity, and going into, I believe it was still first week of season, and he already had 3 home runs. And then he goes 3 for 4 with a double. And then I was like, okay, this kid's like officially on my radar through the spring. Ends up having a big spring season, hit over 350, gets an invite to our pro case. And I felt that, the game was moving a little bit fast for him, I think, at first time kind of in that environment, but you were able to see him kind of relax and settle in as the day went on. When we were at Pepperdine, pop time again was, averaged, I think, around 2, got as low as 197. And I think he's a kid that's just going to continue to get better because he's one of those guys that was kind of under the radar, first year on varsity, comes onto the scene. And in my opinion, he was one of the best players in San Diego throughout the spring, not only in the 26 class, but the entire, area. And I think for him, now that he's kind of established himself, I think he's going to continue to, get better, improve. The body it's a lanky body, but there's obviously some physicalness to it. And, the 5 doubles that he had in the spring, drove in 30, had 3 homers. I think that you're going to continue to see some development in the body, and those numbers could jump going into a senior year. But, first time onto the scene was a really good standout performance for Ian.
Yeah, not the pro case. I agree. It did feel like maybe it was moving a little too quickly, but to his credit, I mean, he held his own there
Right.
at the pro case, particularly on the defensive side for sure. And next guy, Hank, for you, a guy up in your area, number 57 on our big board here, Cedric Henderson. I know it's a guy that we tried to get to the senior future games. He had a really big summer. I had a chance to see him at the area code playing or throwing for MLB Breakthrough, where I was really impressed with what I saw on the mound. But I know that you know the kid, and I know that you've seen him a whole lot more than I have.
Yeah, good old Ceddy. I've known Ceddy since like middle school, I think, but it's kind of been cool just seeing him getting where he is now. I think this summer was kind of it was a big summer for him, but it kind of went sometimes where it was down. But I think he ended his summer on a great note. He went out to PG National, did that event, and he didn't do the greatest. And so he goes back home, trains for a couple weeks, and he's like, look, I get to go to area codes, got to make the best of it. And I think that's where you saw him down there. And he was low 90s with, breaker. I think he had like 5-6 strikeout against the A's team. It was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ceddy's one of those kids where, you're rooting for him. I think he's uncommitted like Hardy, he's not because he's not good enough. It's just he's weighing out the options. There's just one thing about Ceddy where I would like to see is, he has to pitch with a little more fire in his, just his presence out there. I think that'll be the separator between him being like a good pitcher and like a really good pitcher. So, but yeah, I love seeing Ceddy pitch. He's got a really good high school team he's on, talent wise, but we'll see how he does his senior year, and hoping for the best for the kid.
Yeah, it was a really impressive outing there at the area codes, where I want to say it was 5Ks against the A's team, and the velo was good. It was consistent. He maintained it. He held everything throughout his outing, and I think they gave him a 4th inning even because as they were kind of running out of arms, but. He started the 4th inning.
He's really young too. Like I think he could be a 27 technically.
Oh, wow.
With his age.
Yeah. Well, that certainly helps his profile for sure. Right. I mean, we like those young guys that are playing up
Oh yeah.
versus the old guys that are playing down. Hardy, over to you. Number 91 on our top 10 uncommitted. I know you saw St. John Bosco a couple times last year. Gavin Cervantes, the pitcher out of Bosco, He'll be a part of what is looking like a really good rotation here
Yeah.
this spring for them. The Braves are obviously defending CIF Division I champs, and they're going to have now with the resurgence and return of Julian Garcia, which should be another good staff. And Cervantes, the one time I saw them was really good in the spring. I know you had a chance to see him as well.
I got a chance to see Julian right before the start of the spring season at an MLK tournament up in UCSB, and he popped first on the radar for us at state games. He came out, and I think we might have known a little bit about him, but didn't have a whole lot of information on him. And it was really the first chance that we as a staff got to see him throw extended, and he was really good. Like, I think he got up to 90. I know he pitched in the upper 80s, and I think he hit 90, 91. It was a little bit efforty to get to there. Like we talked about, some guys look like they're playing catch. Some guys look like they're trying to throw 90, 91. At that time, that's kind of how he looked. Then I saw him again in January, and it was mid to upper 80s, more playing catch there. And it was less effort for him to get to that 89, 90. And then with Julian Garcia, who you talked about going down for Bosco, it was kind of who's going to pick up Julian's innings, who had been their frontline guy on a team that I want to say Division III in 24 that they lost to Beckman. I believe they were Division III that year. Julian was the guy, and it was who's going to pick up those innings. And Gavin did a fantastic job of saying, okay, I'm going to be that guy. He threw over 30 innings for Bosco in the spring, and he was really good in those innings. And he just continues to get better. It's a wiry, loose frame. Like, he's not a strength mover. He's got a looseness and a whippiness to him. The breaking ball keeps getting better. And he's a guy that maybe is going to be a little slower play for colleges, but whoever winds up pulling the trigger on Gavin is going to get a guy that is not tapped out. He's going to keep getting better. There's a little more velocity that's going to come. I see him maybe one day being a 92, 94 guy at the peak with ride, and he could fit into the backside of a Division I rotation or go into the bullpen and be a really good arm out of the pen for those guys. So he's a name that I think coaches are going to be paying a lot of attention to over these next couple months.
Yeah, he had a really strong outing at that state games. I almost forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up. For me, number 93 on our uncommitted board or on our board, Wylan Rothschafer. Obviously we've seen him a few times in the spring, but we had Rothschafer out at the state games, and he really impressed there. I know we all had a chance to see him as he played games at both of our fields. And, he had a double, a triple over at our field, Vinny. Really impressed. He ran pretty well. It's kind of a high sixes, low sevens on the 60. It's an intriguing profile in that he pitches at times over at Costa Mesa, but he's more of a left side of the infield, probably third base when it's all said and done. He has some physicality to the frame at 6'1", 6'2". He'll be at the West Coast games here in a few weeks for us. And I just really like what he's able to do at the plate. He takes kind of what the pitcher gives him, doesn't try to do too much, but he's able to do some damage at the plate. And, obviously we mentioned that he pitches a little over at Costa Mesa, but in my book, this is a guy who is at a little bit bigger of a program than Costa Mesa. He'd be getting the attention he deserves, but you tip of the cap to the kid. He had the opportunity to go elsewhere, decided to stay at his home school with his buddies, and the result was, they're winning some games over there, but he's really put himself in a position to get noticed, by attending a number of different events. He's playing on the right summer team, playing in the right events there. Wylan Rothschafer at Costa Mesa, I know, we had a conversation about him, Vinny, during our state games when he was at our field. And, I know you liked him as well.
Yeah, no question. Like you said, had a couple extra base hits in the live gameplay, but he kind of stood out to me in the workout portion before the 2 days. Exit velo was upper 90s, averaged, I think, around 90 in batting practice. But he just kind of performed well across the 3 days. There's some guys that showed up on the workout day. There's some guys that just showed up, in the gameplay, but he kind of had a balanced 3 days, which for me is, as, a guy that's going to be with a recruiting lens, I think it's good to have guys that they're not just a showcase player. They can kind of do it all. And he's a guy that I think can show off in multiple aspects of the game, and he showed that at our state games. That's why you see a jump in the rankings.
Yeah, and rounding out the top 10 uncommitted guys at number 51, Noah Everly out of St. John Bosco. Traditionally an infielder, played a little outfield for them last year, a little DH. One of our kind of favorite guys, number 79, Tyson Bobo, can do a little bit of everything on the mound and in the outfield at the plate. I think ultimately his future might be on the mound. And then number 95, Brady Strachan, also from Rancho Bernardo, down in the San Diego area. We saw him at the preseason ID last year or earlier this
February.
year, I should say.
Yeah.
Out at Santiago High School, where he really impressed with the bat, the arm strength in the outfield. And I think one of the things, guys, with these guys being uncommitted, that whole kind of D1 or bust mentality of the past is something that, is kind of non-existent now. But, with the portal and the way it is and what we're seeing with guys going to, some mid majors, even, whether they're high mid majors, low mid majors, really having good seasons and then moving on to those Power 4 schools really should, at least in my opinion, kind of change the mentality of their mindset when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I keep telling my kids this, and every other kid, is go where you're going to play.
Yeah.
Right? Go where you can get on the field. And, the great part about not going D1 is you do get some time to develop at the JUCO level or even a D2. And I don't know, the ego stuff just kind of needs to go out the window at this point. And, if you have a great career going D2 and you get your school paid for and you save your parents money and, you get to graduate, then I consider that a win. But the fact that all these kids just want to go D1, it's a great, goal to have, but, it's time to be realistic. Go to where you're actually going to develop and play, and you'll still have a great time. Because regardless of what level you played, it's baseball. It's a game.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it.
That's a great point. I think we've seen it too a little bit with this class of some guys that were kind of holding on for things in the summer. Those things didn't pop for them, and they're really good students. And we saw a rush of kids committing to high academic Division III schools where it was like, okay, I was holding out for this, I was holding out for that, and now Tufts or Claremont Mudd Scripps or Pomona or some of these really big name academic schools are saying, hey, we want you here and we want you to play for us, not just be on the team. And these guys are jumping at it. So it was really exciting. I had a kid from up here who I think is a very, very good player. He went to senior feature games with us, Jetner Welch. And when he announced he was going to Claremont Mudd Scripps, it was like, holy, Jetner, I didn't realize you were that good of a student. And it was kind of how did you not? I'm like, I don't know. You don't talk a lot, so you're really quiet. So it was like, hey, and I was asking one of his teammates, I'm like, is Jetner really that smart? They're like, oh yeah, he's the smartest guy on the team by far, head and shoulders smarter than everybody else. I'm like, oh, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, he doesn't say a whole lot, right? So he
Yeah.
doesn't. So that's kind of hard to get the read on that. But very talented player, a guy that Hardy. When you and I were kind of talking about the senior future games, and I mean, he was one of those guys that's a no doubt guy we got to get on the team, right? And was really fired up, when he chose to come to that, because not only did he perform well out there, it really all worked out for him in the end. And
exactly,
Vinny, take us through a little bit, kind of your mentality of when you committed. Obviously, I'm sure you had aspirations of playing Division I baseball as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's obviously the goal for everybody, but for me, I played Division II baseball, at Cal State San Marcos, and I kind of had that same kind of look in the mirror where it's time to, realize, you just want to go to a place where you have an equal opportunity and a chance to compete. That's the mentality that I would give, advice to give to anybody. Just like Hank said, get to a place where you think you have an equal chance, to get playing time. You can say all you want, you want to play Division I baseball, but, going somewhere where you're not going to play, you're not going to have any fun. You want to find a place that you can, fit in culturally and also fit in to where you can be on the field every day, having a chance to, win baseball games and, just continue to play your dream of, baseball. It's no fun playing at the next level if you're not having a chance to be on the field. So, at the end of the day, I think Hank said it best. You just want to go play baseball. That's the big thing. And if kids have an opportunity to play at the next level, whatever it is, it's an honor to do that because not a lot of people get to say that they played college baseball. So, for me, I bounced around a little bit, played at a couple different schools, but at the end of the day, it was just me wanting to continue to play and chase the dream of, being on the field because eventually everyone's going to have that, conversation with themselves that they're not going to be able to play anymore. So, play as long as you can and speed at a place where you have an opportunity to compete.
Yeah, it's like the old adage, right? You can't develop when you're sitting on the bench.
Right.
You got to play. You got to play. And that's a good segue, I think, here to our top 100 risers. Guys that rose up into the top 100 of the rankings here, or in and out of the top 100, our top risers, if you will.
Yeah.
And Hank, I'm going to start with you. DJ Delaney, he goes from number 53 all the way up to number 29. Tell us a little bit about DJ Delaney.
DJ Delaney rakes. That's what I got to say about him.
Mic drop.
I saw him at the Boris, and he just pissed on a ball, turned on one, and all the scouts are just like, wow, this kid's pretty good. And then he comes up the next bat, hits like a double in the left center gap. And then you just hear, okay, this kid's area code. And so goes out. I think he did pretty well at the upper class area codes too. But he's just one of those kids where, freshman, sophomore year, you didn't really hear about him because he's not out doing the summer circuit stuff. He was busy developing. And I think, during that time, he finally got his shot to go do some stuff, and he capitalized on it. And now, he's I would say one of the better outfielders in the area, if not, the state up here. But yeah, DJ's a kid where, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. He's committed to Reno. I think that happened a couple weeks ago. So he's going to go play for McKinley. I think it's a great spot for him. He's going to hit some home runs there. I could see that. But yeah, DJ, he's a really good kid. Got to talk to him a couple times. But yeah, he should have a breakout year for St. Ignatius.
Yeah, him and Michael Nonis are going to do some damage up there in Nevada. Yeah. Reno. But Vinny, a guy that we saw a little bit at the San Diego Summer ID, makes the move over to Eastlake High School.
Right.
Catcher, and this guy is just a chatterbox, which I kind of like. Right?
Not a bad thing.
What you need out of a catcher, and he was punishing baseballs at that Summer ID. I had a chance to see him this past weekend during Scout Ball, and he continues to do some of the same there. But really, a high-level defensive catcher, and Tyler, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to butcher your last name, Tyler Maula, out of Eastlake High School.
Yeah, so like you said, Tyler transferred over to Eastlake. He performed well for me in the spring. I saw him twice, hit well. I think he was DHing in the games that I saw him, but first time getting to see him catch at the San Diego Summer ID, and he played well on both sides of the ball. Pop time was around a 199 to I think about 208, but the arm carries there, it's accurate to the bag. And like you said, he was punishing baseballs. I think he had 6 homers across 2 rounds of BP at the Summer ID in San Diego. And then, he carried that over to the state games. He performed well there, going to Cornell, high academic kid. Tyler, and like you said, he's a fun kid to be around. I think he's high energy. I think that plays, in a dugout for, a lot of guys. Sometimes the dugout's flat. You need those kind of guys to bring the energy up, especially as a catcher, leader on the field. But yeah, Tyler, I think he's a kid that's gonna, I think, succeed really well at Cornell. I think he's gonna have a good future, beyond high school at the next level. And he's going to Eastlake where they were right on the fringe of, competing for an open division title in CIF. And I think he's going to help them in 26. and he's going to be going to a team that's going to have an opportunity to compete again, and he's going to be, I think, a force in the middle of that order, just like he was at his previous school. But across two events, he performed well in workout setting and gameplay. So, kudos to Tyler.
Yeah, bright future indeed, especially with
Yeah.
a Cornell degree. But Hardy, a guy for you that you wanted to chat about, makes a move from 212 all the way up to 39. Pretty recognizable last name. I had a chance to see him and chat with him for a minute at Area Code Games. I didn't get to see his outing, unfortunately, but a guy you've seen a lot of, a guy you were really high on, scuffled a little bit last year, came back, and obviously has put himself in a position to be the number 39 ranked player in the state and earn a UCLA commitment. That's Colton Rayner.
Yeah, Colton, I got a chance. I think it was within my first month, maybe 2 months of working for prep baseball. It was at another MLK tournament. And we all know Bryce Rayner, and I had people tell me, like, hey, he's got a younger brother that's going to be pretty good too. So I got a chance to see him throw as a sophomore over MLK weekend, and it was like 84, 86. Nice sweepy slider that was kind of just, he was learning the shape of. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then Royal has just been loaded on the mound for the last 2 years, and it kind of pushed him over to first base. And we talk about kids developing and getting better at different rates. Like, he just hadn't taken that next step from being a good arm to becoming a great arm. And, I don't know if it was a product of getting, I don't want to say buried, but kind of in the second, maybe the third tier of arms on a very good Royal pitching staff. Or if it was, hey, we just need you to play first base right now because we don't really have a first baseman and we need you over there and you can swing it a little bit and you're solid there. Your time's going to come on the mound. But I will say, like, I've seen Royal for 2 years and I saw them a ton this spring. And I would say his slide was not as much a product of him not being a good player, but he just kind of was stuck in this mode of kind of stagnant. You're good, but how are you going to get to the next level? And spring season ended and he kind of dropped off my radar. And then I'm sitting at tryouts for the Brewers area code team, and two of his teammates come over and I'm chatting with them. And they're like, hey, have you seen Colton? And I was like, Colton who? Colton Rayner. And I'm like, oh, is he here? They're like, yeah, he's going to throw a pen today. They're like, he's changed. And he walked out to the mound and it was almost unrecognizable. Like, he had put on maybe 20, 25 pounds of really good strength. And all of a sudden, Vinny was sitting next to me at the tryout and I had the gun and Vinny had his phone up videoing, and he threw his first two fastballs. And I kind of had to blink and I peeked on another scout's gun to make sure my gun was right. And now it's 92, 93, and he hit a 4, and the slider's in the mid 80s, and it's got power to it. And you're going, holy, like, this kid took something on himself from the end of high school season, because they got eliminated very early in the playoffs, surprisingly, to take those next 2 months and just absolutely crush it and come out. He earns a spot on the Brewers team. He's dominant at area code games. I had a chance to see him 2 weeks ago at Scout Ball. He scuffled a little bit early, which I think can kind of be expected for a guy that hadn't touched the mound in 3 weeks and now is facing live hitters again. And by the fourth hitter, locked in. And it was like, I think it was a walk. It was a hit batter, a walk. And then it was soft contact. I think he blew somebody's bat up and he struck out the last guy. And it's like, okay, for what Royal already has, I believe going into this, they have now 4 Division I commits again on their pitching staff. And the guy who maybe was the least known going into the summer might wind up being one of the best ones on that staff. We'll kick it over to you, Les. And when we talk about guys making me look short, which is not hard to do, this guy makes me look really short, and he does not lack for arm talent and upside. And that's Owen Shannon from Mater Dei, who went out to senior feature games with us.
Yeah, we had Owen obviously out in Georgia with us, and at 6'8", 232, he's going to make a lot of people feel small around him. But another guy that didn't get a lot of innings at Mater Dei. It's kind of been a struggle for him to kind of find the rhythm, find the repetition and the mechanics and the delivery. But he went out to Georgia where he threw 2 innings for us and labored a little bit through the first couple of hitters. But then he started, to pound the zone with the fastball slider combo and, got a couple of punch outs, weak contact to the right side from right-handed hitters, indicating that, they're late picking it up. And, during that outing of his, we had a couple of coaches walk over to our dugout and they're like, Les, who's this giant, right? Who is this guy? And, how do we get a hold of him? Just wanting more information about him. A guy that we've obviously seen, at a number of different events. We saw him at the Uncommitted games last fall, Hardy, where you and I were, where he was really good there as well. After kind of laboring a little bit, this is a guy with a fresh arm. He repeats the mechanics now a lot better than he did last fall. Is able to run it up to 88, 89, as we mentioned. But, this is a dude who I think just needs those reps and needs that development. And in about 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, is going to be a 6'8" guy coming out of the pen that, could potentially be throwing 95, 97 with the wipeout slider. That's kind of where his profile is on the back end of the rotation, bullpen guy. But just a really, really a nice kid, really academic kid. But he showed enough, I think, this summer in a couple of different viewings that merited his jump of 50 from 202 to 152, with the kind of the icing on the cake being that senior future games performance where, again, after laboring through a couple of hitters, was really, really good. And so, I mean, for me, he's a lot like a guy that Hank, I'm going to kick over to you and talk about that we saw, obviously came to our future games tryout last summer, was injured, didn't have a chance to really try out, but he still showed up, telling us a lot about him as a person, Hardy up at Westmont. Goes out, has a pretty solid spring season, but then comes out to Georgia with us on the senior future games, and was, one of our 2-3 best players on that West Coast team. One of the leaders on that team was always at the door of the dugout, talking it up with everybody, asking questions of us. And Hank, that's Drew Hamburger.
Mr. 4% body fat. Funny story about Drew is he was at my first event ever, and that was last year. I ran the uncommitted games in the fall. And so he kind of did went to the uncommitted games in the fall, gets an invite to the preseason All-State, does well, monitor him through the year, earns an invite to the West Coast future games team, and then makes it and, makes a name for himself out there. But like I was joking earlier, it is 4% body fat, but the kid doesn't have a piece. Like, he is lean, but it's a 6'2" body. He's like chiseled pretty much. Runs a 6'7". His arm, I think he's good enough to stay on the left side. It's 85, 86 across. But he's just an even better human being, off the field. Like, that's why I respect him the most. Is he was like one of the only kids at the tryout to, ask, hey, coach, you need anything after the day, like help you put stuff away, just little stuff like that. And then he was just so appreciative of getting that opportunity to go out to Georgia and get on that stage. But, he's a kid that a school needs to get on this kid. He's really good, high academic kid. He's not going to let you down. Like Les said, he was one of the leaders in the dugout. So I think anyone who picks Hamburger up, they're not going to miss, just because, he has a twin brother too. He plays basketball. So like the work ethic's there. It's not like he's going to be out, partying or, doing whatever, but he wants to play D1 baseball. He wants to play pro ball. And I think he's got a shot to get there in the long run.
Yeah, he's an absolute leader. And I mean, that frame is easy to dream on, because I think he's the one that told us it's like 4% body fat. And it's just, I mean, it's athletic too, which is awesome. I think would you guys agree profiles more as a third baseman down the road? I mean,
and a good one over there, like not a bad one. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Say again.
He could be a third type guy. He could play both, I think.
Yeah, and athletic enough to maybe even move to the outfield too.
Yeah, throw him in left.
Yeah.
I mean, I could even see him maybe play in second because he's that good of an athlete, and the arm will be perfectly fine at second.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Vinnie, a catcher that you guys had a chance to see at the tryout as well. 𝕤𝐡𝐞𝐜𝐤, I believe I might be butchering that last name, but I do apologize, Cole, if I am. Goes from number 230 to 155. I know he had a strong showing at the Ventura County tryout. Vinnie, take us through kind of what you know about Cole.
Yeah, so Cole's coming off a big spring out at Highland and followed that up with a strong summer. I think that's why you see such a big jump for him in the rankings. But I got to see him both, at state games and obviously, at the summer event before that. And the hit tools there had a monster season at Highland, and comes up in our state games, picks up 3 hits on the field that I was at, and the hit tool is present because there was a couple balls that he was out on his front foot a little bit and was able to muscle some balls in the outfield. Just showed the barrel control there. He's reliable behind the plate. Arm doesn't possess, a lot of carry, but it is accurate to the bag. It's a quick transfer. And, he's 6'2", 207, potential, catcher first base combo at the next level, can play both. And I think for him, it's a big, strong body, but I think you're going to see an opportunity for him to develop it and, really polish it over the next, 5-6 months leading into a senior year. But, you can't teach this. And, power from the left side, it's consistent on a line, off the barrel. And I think he's in a good place at Highland. He came over, he performed well in 2 summer events. So I think he's in a really good spot going into 2026. And, I think he can be a reliable catcher at the next level for a program.
Yeah, and Hardy, obviously you were there at that Ventura County tryout. I know that you were really high on him as well. So bright future there for Cole. And Highland, not a field I'm familiar with. Hardy, is that place kind of
high desert? It's a high desert, like cold. Vinny stole cold from me. I'm not gonna lie. I went in last night to go pick my 3 guys, and Cole's on there, which I'm glad that somebody, because I'm super, super high on Cole, and I think Vinny nailed it. Like, I don't care where you put him on the field. That left-handed bat's gonna play, and he's gonna hit, and he's gonna hit for power, like exactly what Vinny said. Like that kid can flat out swing it. I don't care where you take him to.
Making a jump from 335 to 251. Hardy, Riley Ortega. I know that you've been backing this guy for a while now, and so why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
So Riley's center fielder, Pacifica High School out here. Pacifica made a very surprising run 2 years ago to the semifinals of D5 with what was basically an entire team of freshmen and sophomores, and then one really good junior left-handed hitter I said was the best hitter in the 2026 class is off to Bakersfield. But Riley was the leadoff guy on that team. He played center. He was this very, don't get upset, Riley, very skinny right-handed hitting center fielder who was athletic. He could bunt. He could draw walks. He could kind of slap the ball around the field. Came back, saw him again this year. He had added a little bit of strength to his frame. He was hitting with a little more impact. He now was up over, I think he hit like 360, 370 in the Channel League this year. He was an all-league guy. But this is where sometimes I think the events are the most beneficial for us is he got an invite to state games. He took the opportunity to come out to state games and be a part of that event for 3 days. And we get an opportunity like, hey, we really love the baseball player. And we get to see him play against his local competition. But now we get a chance to see him go through the workout and see that, hey, the metrics are pretty good across the board. Like, it's not just a good baseball player. It's a pretty dang good athlete. Like, he's a low 7s, high 6'9" runner. It's a super accurate mid-80s arm. He understands his arm. He's not trying to throw it in the air all the way to home plate. He's playing one hop. He's online with it. He moves really well. The swing's got some bat speed. The hands are quick. He turns well. All this stuff shows up, and then we get him to see him play against kids from different areas, like pitchers he's never seen before. And we can all attest, all of us that hit, the first time you see a pitcher, it's a little hard. Like, you don't know what that breaking ball is going to do. You don't know exactly what the shape of the fastball looks like, even when your teammates come back and tell you, like, hey, it's cutting, it's riding, it's doing this or that. But sometimes you got to see it. And I think he went 5 for 7 at state games, multiple extra base hits, draws walks. He made a really good play for me over at Fullerton Union, which I've seen him do a ton out there. So it was the ability to take what I've seen for 2 years of him on varsity level out here in Ventura County and then go see it in state games against kids from NorCal, the Inland Empire, San Diego, Central Valley, and in the workout setting and go like, hey, I don't care if this kid doesn't wind up at a 4-year out of high school. He's going to go to a junior college and be really freaking good at a junior college, and he's going to get to a 4-year one day. He was a football player for 2 years. He's now all in on baseball for his senior year. He wants to be a college baseball player. He wants to play at a high level, and he's on the way there. So I'm super high on Riley. Let's kick it back to you, Les. And this was you throw UCSB right-handed pitcher, Southern California. That's all really, really good. And then you give him the last name of Guy, and this guy is a guy. He, I think, was the last arm to throw at pro case. And when you're the last guy following 17 really good arms, it's hard to really catch anybody's eye at that point of the day. And Gavin did. He came out and was electric at pro case.
Yeah, I mean, we put him last and not a single scout left, right? Because he was a dude that everyone wanted to see. And we have some familiarity with him, obviously, from the state games. I saw him a couple times in the spring, but 6'4", 190. He's kind of your prototypical UCSB commit. He can really spin the fastball, change up to 80, lift 76, 79 with it. What I think will eventually develop into a plus slider at 75, 74, 75. All he did was get 3 punchies and 2 infield groundouts at the pro case against some quality hitters. And, we talk about those prototypical Santa Barbara guys. I had the good fortune of seeing Tyler Bremner around this same time in his high school career. And, I remember calling Santa Barbara coaches when they committed Gavin and saying, this guy reminds me a lot of Bremner now. Is he going to go number 1 overall like Bremner? I don't know, obviously, but he reminds me a lot of him. And in fact, I think I made the comment that he was a little ahead of Bremner when he was at that time in his career. And, Guy is a dude that has a lot of, I'll keep this PG, a lot of mean streak in him. He's going to go after guys and he's going to attack guys and not give in. He's going to here's my best stuff. If you beat me, great, tip of the cap to you, but I'm going to get you next time. And not a lot of guys, at least from last spring, and certainly not at our pro case, can say that they got him. Didn't make a huge jump from 58 to 47, but, a small and still significant jump for him in the rankings, and a guy that we've all seen enough of to believe that, the future is really bright. And, Hank, over to you with a guy that, goes from unranked to 239 in our rankings, and Cole Roth. And, he's a guy that I don't think a lot of people know a whole lot about, but, you wanted to make a point to talk about Cole Roth.
Yeah, Cole Roth, he goes to a school that it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I think the name we know is Trey Morris. The going to Oregon State, but Cole, actually, me and Les found him at a small ID in Novato High School one weekend, and this kid comes out. What was that? He was good there. Oh yeah, and we were doing the defense part, and we're like, who's this kid ripping 82, 83 behind the dish velo as a catcher? So that's what first caught my eye, and then we go to the BP part, and this kid's just hitting stuff out to dead center. And granted, Novato High School isn't the biggest field, but it was, still impressive. His high school team is just, the talent's limited where he's at. So I think that's where we invited him to the preseason All-State over summer, and then we got to see him at the end of summer, and arm got stronger. The bat's still there. And now he's going into his senior year and he's actually coming to my uncommitted games this weekend. So this will be his third event. He's kind of just worked his way up, and I would say as far as arm strength, I think he has one of the stronger arms in the whole state.
Yeah.
He's kind of behind that Sheffer, in that top category. He's obviously got some stuff to clean up, footwork wise, transfer, because the pop time's still, 2.0, 2.1. But like I said, with another kid, if he gets reps, he's going to be one of those kids where you're like, oh, I've never heard of this kid. And then you see him, go to a bigger D1 or do whatever. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see what Cole does this year and where he ends up.
Yeah, at that preseason ID, man, you talked about him hitting bombs out to center and a small field, but you have to remember it was cold and it was damp, right?
It was.
And
I saw the videos from there.
Yeah, and he's still ripping balls, a good 15, 20 feet over dead center. It was pretty damn impressive. That's for damn sure. Vinny, a guy that we're all pretty familiar with out of Los Osos. Right. Wyatt Moeller makes a small jump up in the rankings, but a jump nonetheless. And this is a guy that, I know Hardy loves this guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of him, and it sounds like, all of us on this podcast are. Very deserving jump up the rankings.
Yeah, so Wyatt had a really good state games, but the main thing I wanted to, why I picked, him to talk about was just the consistency. He's a career 389 hitter across 3 varsity seasons and 250 at-bats. That's really hard to do. And, I think that he carried that into our state games event, had an exit velocity up to 100, averaged just around 90, off the barrel. Got a couple hits, I believe, at least on our field, at Fullerton Junior College, and committed to St. Mary's, third base profile, but he can also hop on the mound. He's up to 86 there. I think third base is probably, where the future's at for him, and he's a good third baseman. He can play both sides of the ball, but, there's not a lot of guys that are just going to be hitting 400 across their high school career. And, I think he hit 364 last year. I think you're going to see a jump in that going into a senior year. Had a good summer circuit. So, like you said, it was a warranted, jump in the rankings just because of the consistency with Wyatt. And, you guys talked about him a little bit, and then I got my first look at him, and there's a reason, to like there with Wyatt.
Yeah, he's been really good at every event he's ever done, going back to preseason All-State last year. I mean, he was really good at the uncommitted games last fall. It just continues to, again, that consistency that you talked about. I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, that's what we've seen from him is nothing short of consistency. And Hardy, the last guy you wanted to chat about, another guy that goes from unranked, climbs all the way up to 161, Landon Anderson.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And this goes back to, we talked about like events. Bakersfield's an area that we don't really get out to see a lot. It's somewhere I've been in junior college when I was coaching, and there's talent out there. It's just a hard area for us to get to. It's a 2+ hour drive for me. So it was very important to get an ID event out there this summer for us and start to get some eyes on that area and get a better understanding for it. And so we had a summer ID. It was actually our last event of the summer, about a week after state games, I believe. It was 108 degrees out there, and it was a rough day for anybody to showcase. But those kids are so used to it that it didn't phase them. And London was the standout of an event that had some really, really good players. We had a lefty up to 90. We had another guy that was super athletic in the outfield. There was a 28 who was throwing rockets across the diamond as a shortstop. But on what was a very slow track, and we talk about this with 60s and getting kids to understand, like, your 60 times are going to vary based on the track you're running on. Like, if you're running on a turf field, you're probably going to be faster. If you're running uphill, you're running downhill. Is the wind blowing? And this was like a soft grass. It was a little bit loose. It wasn't the best track. And it was the first thing we did that day. 3 steps into his 60, I said to myself, holy F, this guy's fast. And then when he got across the finish line, I looked down, and it was the fastest 60 we saw at any event all summer. I think it was a 6.53 or a 6.52. And I was like, And it did not look like he was trying to run fast. It was super body control. It was explosive on the line. He maintained it the whole way, perfect straight line. Then he goes to the outfield, and he's, again, very similar to Riley I talked about. It is not a rocket arm. It is an accurate arm. It's low 80s. It's online. He one hops everything. He doesn't try to throw this rainbow to wherever he's throwing it to. It's an understanding of how my arm plays. He gets into the batter's box, and there is strength. Like, it's a power speed combination because he was 100 plus EV. He was 90 plus consistently throughout. It's a little bit of an uphill swing. He kind of loses his top hand at times. But that's just the rawness. Sometimes I was having a conversation with one of the guys at the event, and I had just done one out here in Ventura County maybe a month earlier. And I was like, the difference sometimes of Ventura County to Bakersfield is our guys might be a little more polished baseball wise out here, but the Bakersfield kids are stronger and more athletic sometimes. They just don't have the baseball polish. And that's kind of what I saw with London at the plate, is super athletic, super strong, just a little raw at times with understanding how his swing path is going to work. But then you go look at his numbers. He hit 390 at Bakersfield Christian last year. Extra base hits, draws walks, steals bases. It's a true center field, top of the order profile. It was funny. I posted his video as one of the standouts from that. I had multiple Division I coaches just shoot me a text to be like, "Who's this kid? Where is he from? How did you find him? Tell me about him." I'm like, "Well, the tools are all there. The numbers are there. Like, I think he's coming to West Coast games next month. He'll be there. He's a guy that you got to get eyes on because I think he can make a difference for any college program, whether that's a Division I, Division II, NAI, D3 JUCO. Like, whoever gets this kid, he's going to play center field. He probably could play second base. I'd have to see it a little better, but he could fit into the top of a lineup and be an impact guy and coming out. And that's why I'm super excited to get back out to Bakersfield in November, because I think there are more London Andersons and the other kids I talked about in Bakersfield that we just haven't seen that are going to put their way into all sorts of different rankings for us and onto the boards of college programs. So last guy, this is a kid I know we all love. He is the Bugs Bunny changeup who's now throwing really firm with the fastball, and he's committed to Oregon. That's Jake 𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒. I almost said it wrong there.
Big Jake, yeah, we had him obviously at a future games last year. That led to an LMU commit. He gets invited to the pro case after a really strong season. Says, hey, due to the coaching changes there, I'm probably going to be decommitting. Decommits from LMU and ends up committing to Oregon a couple of weeks later. But his pro case outing was more of the same that we saw, at future games where he won the MVP of that particular game. But the only difference is the increase in the velo up to 91 now, living pretty consistently 89, 90. You talk about that changeup. It's as good a changeup as there is in the class, if not the best changeup in the class. It's 79 to 80, but then the improvements he's made on his slider have really impressed me too. I mean, it's more of a sharper biting slider than, whereas before it was a little loopier, more of a curveball shape, but now it's a sharper slider, and it's a legit 3-pitch mix, and he's added some physicality to his frame too. It's 6'1", 200 pounds. He's added some strength to the lower half, and the shoulders are starting to get a little more broad. And, he's always been very mature for his grade. But it's just, it's an easy operation. And as I mentioned with Gavin Guy, like, this guy's got a lot of moxie on the mound, right? He's got, a little FU in him on the mound for sure, right? He's going to challenge guys, and he's going to go right after guys. And, I think that's going to serve him well, not only this last year at GAR, but, if he, in fact, he does make it, up to Oregon, because, he's squarely now in that kind of draft conversation with scouts, and, where, maybe he bypasses, the opportunity to pitch at Oregon and makes his way to pro ball. But it's just a really clean delivery, really clean operation. But I think the thing that separates him from most pitchers that we've talked about, not all pitchers that we've talked about in this podcast, is that mentality of, look, I'm going to go after you. I'm going to attack you. And let's go. I think he takes kind of that fist fight mentality on the mound, right? Like, let's rumble, boys.
It reminds me of Chad Cordero.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good call.
Look at you pulling out the fully comp.
Fullerton line.
I had to look up the height before I said it, but they got like the same type of like, F you, let's go. Here's what I got. So
yeah, no, I like that. I like that, Hank. And I think he would take that career any day of the week, right? I mean,
we all would.
Right, no doubt. But I think, guys, one of the kind of the underlying themes of most of these guys, not all of them, obviously, that we talked about today, is like having the opportunity to see them, in whether it's area codes or, some other big event like that, having the opportunity to see them in their high school teams, but, also see them at one of our events, right?
Yeah.
And where, that really provides us an opportunity to get to know these guys. Obviously the metrics and the data that we provide players that come to our event, speaks for itself. But I think just getting to know them on a personal level, being able to have the metrics and data to back up what our eyes tell us, and then in these gameplay situations that you touched on, Hardy, with Ortega, getting to see them out of their area and how they compete with guys out of their area. I mean, that's really invaluable for us, not only when we get to come to rankings, but when we get to have those conversations like you said you had, about London when college coaches are blowing you up, being able to say, yeah, this kid's from San Diego, but I saw him compete against some of the best kids from Orange County, and he more than held his own, or vice versa. The importance of the events for us, I think, is something that can't be understated.
Very much agree. Like, I think that's the biggest thing for me with the events. And I have this conversation with kids. Like, we run events all over the state year round. Obviously we take the high school season off and we do some middle school stuff there. And they're like, well, do I need to come to everything? Like, you don't need to come to every event, but if you can get to one or two and get to an ID, get to a gameplay event, like there's just so much information that not only we can gather, but the amount of college coaches that go to our website and they use our website. I tell kids, like, events can be an identifier or they can be a confirmer. Like, an identifier for me, like, that's why we call it an ID. We see kids and it's like, hey, I really like this kid. Get me your high school schedule. Like, who do you play travel ball for? Where can I come see you playing games? Or the inverse, a confirmer, like, we've seen this kid, or a college coach has seen this kid playing a game, and then they go to the website and they go like, okay, I saw him 88 to 89 the day that I saw him, and then he was at state games, or he was at the summer ID and he was 88 to 89 there. So it's legit. Like, he's there. This guy runs a 6'7". Those ability to confirm what they're seeing, it's super helpful for them.
And I think, Hank, like for your area up in NorCal, it's like even more important, right? I mean, because you guys are so spread out. It's such a big area. When we're able to get those guys to events, it really helps boost, their profile. And we're starting to see that since you've been on board with us here a little over a year now. Like, we're starting to see more and more kids like, okay, hey, I got to get to one of Hank's events because it's going to put me on the map.
Oh, 100%. Now you said it best. I mean, I think a big part of it too is, like just having that trust and like, hey, come to an event, see what it's about. And if you don't like it, hey, it's not for you. But, if it is for you, let's progress. Let's move on. Let's get you to other, pretty much just give them more opportunities. You know what I mean? So, up here too, like you said, it's such a big area, and it's like I got coaches trying to ask me about a kid, and it's like, oh, you're up in NorCal, but hey, the kid's 2.5 hours away. Like, it's kind of hard to see him, right? Like, I was thankful enough to go down to Fresno at the end of the year. I got Davis Wilson. You know, I think if I don't go down there, he doesn't come play for us in the future games. Yep. And, you know, just making that relationship of, hey, you want to come to the pro case, you know, from there you can get invited to Georgia, you know, and so on and so forth. But like, that's a higher echelon thing. But like, even a guy like Drew Hamburger comes to an uncommitted games, gets another invite, and then now he's at the future games playing, you know, in front of 300 coaches. So I think, you know, for me too, I love building that relationship just between the player and the kid. Like,
yeah,
I mean, for me, it's rewarding. And then if you could just help out somebody that's, you know, like I said earlier too, I can only trust so much video,
right?
Like from what I see and what other people see. So it's like, when I see a kid, I might think something differently than Hardy sees the kid, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I finally can see him instead of just, oh, this guy said this about him. That like, it's, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is it's a lot easier to judge a kid based on when he's in front of you. And,
right.
Yeah. Nobody posts bad video. Like nobody goes and shows themselves looking bad on video on social media. And sometimes it's good. Like I want to see a kid come miss a few swings in BP. How does he react? Like, can he adjust? Can he get it back on time? You know, guy keeps bouncing his breaking ball in his bullpen. And then it's like, can he figure out how to get it in the strike zone? Because we don't see bad video. You don't go on Twitter and see that.
You said it best, Les. Like, say you get a kid from, you know, it's really good in his area, and then you put him at an art showcase around the best kids in Orange County, and he does good. You can kind of, you know, base some stuff off that rather than, oh, he's the best player in his little area. Yeah, now you can kind of be like, all right, this kid can compete with these kids.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Hardy, to that point, like you started doing this, and Vinny has done this now as well, where, you know, in your videos, you know, say a guy, you know, fouls a ball off, like you're throwing that in your guys' videos because you're still able to learn a lot about the swing, right? And it's not just barrels, right? Okay, yeah, he got a double barrel, right? Okay, yeah, maybe there was a swing and miss, but it was a good swing. And Vinny, I know you've kind of picked up on doing that too, because it helps us to learn more about the players.
Yeah, I think for me, you go ahead, Hardy.
No, go ahead, Vinny. Go.
I was just going to say for me, you know, my introduction was, you know, in January for a few events, but, you know, mainly I got my feet wet really in the spring and collecting video. But when you said kind of learning about the player, I made that kind of a conscious effort for myself in the summer. And I'll say when we went to Georgia for future games, you know, and I was in the dugout and really getting to know these kids, it really gave me a completely different perspective on them outside of just being, you know, the video that I take and, you know, seeing them on the field. And, you know, I think that's huge for obviously recruiters as well. If you have a coach calling, you know, one of us, you know, they're not only going to want to know about the player, but they're going to want to know about the kid, you know, and if we have kids coming to events and we're able to get to know them, you know, I think that separates, you know, a kid possibly, you know, getting a check or a check off of a list from a recruiter. And, you know, like Hardy said, you only can judge video so much, you know, and then, like that's why, you know, add some foul, you know, tips into in the video gets more of a understanding of, you know, the swing. But for me, this summer was huge to try to get to know players on a personal level, and I think our events, you know, give that opportunity kids to showcase themselves on and off the field. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, Vinny, like we experienced this yesterday, right? We were all on a call, and I get a text from a Power 5 coach like, "Hey, tell me about so and so. I just want to make sure I'm checking all my boxes."
Right.
And it's like, I mean, that's just it. If we don't know about the player because the player came to an event, we had a chance to interact with him, got a chance to learn a little bit about his personality and follow up with his, you know, high school or his summer coach about, you know, who this kid really is. It's hard to be able to answer those questions.
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately this player came to the future games where we did share a dugout with him for 4 days. And it's like, okay, you really get to know somebody for being in a dugout with them for 4 days.
Right.
So I think the importance of the events, and Hardy, I loved what you said, you know, with, you know, do I have to come to all of them? No, like I say the same thing, right? Or Hank, it might've been you also, like, you know, come to an ID. If we've never been to an event, come to an ID, and then let us get you to an invite only event where there's a game, you know, and then, you know, that leads to these bigger events, whether it's the future games or the pro case or the state games. or the West Coast games or the super sophomore games, whatever it might be. But, just get in front of us, I think is the underlying message, because, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's not 100 of us covering the state of California during the spring. There's, maybe 7 or 8 of us covering the state of California during the spring. And, we're not all going to 7 or 8 games in one day, right? We're going to one game. So, I mean, that there's 300 games going on. That means we're missing out on 292 of those. So I think, the best opportunity is getting yourself in front of us, whether it's at an ID or accepting an invitation to these invite-only events, to where we can really kind of dive into who you are, not only as a player, but as a person.
Yeah. I think the events.
I think you guys could all attest to, like, when you guys talk to these coaches and stuff, is, the talent's great, but how are they as a person? Like,
100%.
are we going to recruit the right kid to be a good person on this team, or are we just doing the talent? And I think that's the biggest separator of us getting to know these kids, is like, we actually get a feel on the personalities.
And more, Hank, to that point, I'm glad you brought that up, more and more with the roster restrictions, right? I mean, they're not just going to take 45 guys anymore, right? They can't. So it's like they have to make sure that the character, that the personality, that everything that you just touched on matches the athleticism, the talent, and it matches what the program goals are, right? So, I mean, I think that's even more important now than it was 3, 4, or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I got a phone call from a coach. I got a phone call from a coach who basically just said, he's like, hey, I know this kid's a great baseball player. He can impact our program, but do I want to hang out in a dugout and on a bus and a plane and a hotel with him for 9 months, or is he going to drive me absolutely bonkers? Yeah. And there's nothing better to be able to say, like, I spent a day with this kid at an event and he was super respectful. It wasn't eyewash. It wasn't that, like, false hustle. Like, it was genuine. This is a good kid and you want this kid in your program.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for all of our upcoming events, be sure to check out our website, prepbaseballreport.com/California. You can get to all of our events. We've got a handful of fall ID events coming up, fall invite-only events. Our winter schedule, our preseason events will be up on the board here pretty soon. So, guys, again, I just want to thank you guys for hopping on and doing this recap. I know we went a little long, but I think it was worth it. A bunch of talented players.
Agreed.
100%.
Sounds good.
Thanks again for watching and listening. Till next time, we will see you at the yard.